Terence Crawford, his name keeps coming up, and I know he's a lot smaller than you. Is that a fight that you would ever consider under any circumstance?
You know, I always say if the fight make sense, why not? But he is not in the plan.
Canelo Alvarez has just given a brutal response to the fight call out from Terence Crawford. Meanwhile, Alexander Usyk believes that Crawford will emerge victorious over Canelo if their highly anticipated bout takes place in the early months of next year. The WBA, WBC, and WBO heavyweight champion Usyk thinks Crawford's technical prowess will be essential to defeating Canelo's bulk and strength. Although a Canelo-Crawford battle has not yet been scheduled, His Excellency Turki Alalshik is in favor of it. According to reports, he promised to give Canelo a fair price for the match. The exact amount is unknown, but Canelo would have to be extremely wealthy to want to take the chance of ruining his reputation by fighting a welterweight. I say Terence wins. Terence is a different man. Terence works in two sides on the right and the left, said Alexander Usyk on the 3 Knockout Rule YouTube channel. If that fight plays out, Usyk predicts a victory for Terence Crawford over Canelo Alvarez at 168 next year. Usyk added, he feels the distance. Terence can box like a big guy. Considering Floyd Mayweather Jr. earned over $200 million for his bout against Manny Pacquiao, Canelo Alvarez might seek comparable compensation, given that he's facing a fighter reminiscent of Money May. However, Turkey is unlikely to agree to such a high payout for a Canelo-Crawford matchup, as it's expected to fall short of the blockbuster pay-per-view figures generated by Mayweather versus Pacquiao. In 2015, both of those fighters were major draws on pay-per-view. By contrast, Crawford has had just a single successful PPV event in his 16-year career, which came against Errol Spence in 2023. However, it was Spence, not Crawford, who was the true catalyst behind that success. Crawford is expected to adopt a strategy similar to Mayweather's when facing Canelo, focusing on a tactical approach of constant movement and elusive footwork to avoid danger and secure a decision victory. While the fight might lack fireworks, Crawford's methodical game plan will likely see him achieve his objective of outmaneuvering Canelo and staying out of the knockout zone. Crawford's chances of outlasting Canelo in a brawl are slim. Instead, he'll emulate the Mayweather strategy, aiming to box his way through all 12 rounds. Enthusiasts of technical boxing will relish the Canelo-Crawford bout, while those who crave non-stop action might be disappointed.
Like he say, if he beat Germonta, no, everybody's gonna say, yeah, it's too small,
right,
and this and that. So it's the same thing. I respect Crawford. He's a good fighter, but we're not different.
It turns absurd when a reigning champion faces off against an opponent who's leapfrogged 3 weight classes to vie for a world title, such as if Crawford were to ascend to challenge Canelo for his WBA, WBC, and WBO super middleweight belts. Canelo stands to gain nothing from this bout and will likely face public scorn regardless of the outcome. Even though Crawford faced Israil Madrimov this Saturday, a bout between him and Canelo would still be perceived by fans as the Mexican superstar defending his title against a welterweight. One fight doesn't transform Crawford into a junior middleweight in the eyes of the public. However, Crawford has made it clear that his ultimate goal right now is to challenge Canelo at super middleweight. The Mexican fighter has previously downplayed the significance of this challenge, arguing that defeating a smaller opponent wouldn't earn him much respect. Yet, Bud remains relentless. His drive for victory, rivaled only by David Benavidez, who has battled his way through the top contenders at 168 to secure a chance at facing Canelo. Neither fighter has managed to find success this year. Canelo is set to face Edgar Berlanga on September 14th, defending 3 of the 4 major titles after losing the IBF belt. Floyd Mayweather, a 50-0 fighting great, discussed the issue with Fight Hype and suggested that Crawford and Benavidez square off. He said, I think he's a super skillful fighter, very talented fighter. I thought about this. If he wants to go to 168 and he wants to fight Canelo, and Benavidez wants to fight Canelo, they can't get Canelo, they can fight each other. Benavidez and Crawford, both you guys are chasing one fighter. Y'all can't get that fight, then y'all should say we'll fight each other. It's a fascinating idea, though it seems quite improbable. Bud has previously stated that his goal is to have Canelo's name etched onto his record, rather than just facing a larger opponent. Meanwhile, Benavidez has recently committed to the light heavyweight division for the foreseeable future, especially after his attempts to lure Canelo into a title defense fell short. Meanwhile, Sean Porter has told TalkSport that Crawford is surely capable of defeating Canelo. Now retired from the ring, Porter has shifted gears to become a pundit in LA, gearing up for Crawford's WBA super welterweight world title showdown against Israil Madrimov this Saturday night. Should the American triumph, he will become a member of an exclusive group of 4-weight world champions. Crawford's goals, however, don't stop there. In the end, he wants to move up 2 more classes to face Canelo, the reigning super middleweight champion. But first, he needs to defeat Madrimov, who has never lost. Porter told TalkSport when asked what Madrimov will be up against on Saturday, "He's just a stone-cold athlete. He's extremely confident and obviously extremely skilled and talented. Madrimov is up against a lot of athleticism. He's up against a lot of speed, a lot of power, and he's up against an intellect that can't be duplicated," Porter added. "So if I was in Madrimov's corner, I'd say, what you do, don't divert from what you do. You have to keep pushing, and maybe you'll push a button at the right time." Speaking of Crawford versus Canelo, Porter said that his former rival can win. He even went so far as to suggest that, depending on Crawford's performance against Madrimov, it might not strike him as an upset if Canelo were to fall to the naturally smaller fighter. Porter insisted, "It's a realistic fight. In some way it would be an upset if Terence won, but I don't think so, especially if he does something amazing on fight night here against Madrimov. I think it's not an upset. That's a 50-50 to me, and I do think Crawford could beat Canelo." When asked if he thought Madrimov, the fighter he is promoting, could defeat a generational talent like Crawford, Eddie Hearn explained that timing was crucial. He acknowledged his role in championing Israil Madrimov, but recognized that Madrimov was a significant underdog. Hearn mentioned that Madrimov possessed many of the necessary qualities, such as technical skill, IQ, strength, and durability, noting that he was not a weak puncher or an unfit 154 pounder. While Madrimov could technically match, or come close to matching, Hearn admitted that Crawford was a generational great and therefore heavily favored. Hearn also suggested that ideally, Madrimov would have benefited from 2 or 3 more fights, but emphasized that seizing the opportunity was essential. When asked whether Crawford wanted to fight Canelo, and if Canelo was interested in the matchup, Eddie Hearn responded that Canelo was not particularly keen on the fight. He felt that beating the smaller Crawford would not earn him much credit. Regarding whether Canelo would take the fight after facing Edgar Berlanga on September 14th, Hearn suggested that Canelo would consider any fight if the financial terms were right. He noted that Canelo had no fear of Terence Crawford and was more concerned about the recognition he would receive for the victory. Hearn explained, "If he wins that fight, it's like he beat a 154 pounder and a 147 pounder who just came up. If he loses that fight, it's like, oh, he got beat by a 154 pounder." With Canelo, he selects fighters based on the styles that he likes. I genuinely think that's why he chose Edgar Berlanga and Jaime Munguia. He likes guys that come forward and fight him. Hearn also mentioned that Canelo preferred opponents who come forward and engage rather than those who move and box from the back foot, as evidenced by his discomfort with Jermell Charlo's movement. Hearn said, "I don't think he likes facing fighters who move. His body is probably not quite what it was. When Jermell Charlo ran off the back foot, Canelo didn't like it or enjoy it. He wants someone that comes to fight. He'll fight anyone. He also in his head has a number that he thinks fights are worth. It's just whether that's realistic." When asked about his on-again, off-again relationship with Alvarez, who will next fight Matchroom's Berlanga on a PBC-led show, Hearn described their relationship as very honest. He considered Alvarez a friend and one of the greatest fighters of their generation, a pound-for-pound great and a legend. Hearn expressed that he understood Alvarez well in their business dealings, which allowed them to work together effectively and shake hands on agreements. Hearn stated that he wasn't offended when Alvarez took a better opportunity elsewhere, acknowledging that Alvarez would always choose the best opportunity for himself, rather than out of loyalty. He noted that if circumstances were equal, Alvarez would likely choose to work with them. Hearn mentioned that when they signed Berlanga, he had promised to secure a fight with Canelo, originally expecting it to be a Matchroom-promoted event. Instead, they had to negotiate a deal with PBC for the fight. Hearn said, "Benavidez is now campaigning at 175 pounds. He's a huge guy, and in the ring without a rehydration clause, he is going to be the bigger guy. I think Canelo knows that's a tough fight. Whether or not it's real that he wants $150 million, or he put that out there to get close to $100 million, he wouldn't hesitate to take that fight. There is no part of him that feels like he wouldn't win that fight. He understands that rivalry means big money." On the other hand, Terence Crawford is intensely dedicated to his bout against Israil Madrimov. This fight marks His Excellency Turki Alalshik's inaugural event in the US as part of the Riyadh season. Despite his ambition to conclude his career on a high note with a clash against unified super middleweight champion Canelo Alvarez, Crawford remains resolutely focused on the task at hand, undistracted by the swirling speculation about a future showdown with Canelo. With world titles in 3 different weight classes and being the first fighter to achieve undisputed status in 2 of them, Terence "Bud" Crawford is set to challenge for the WBA Super Welterweight and WBO Interim Super Welterweight belts against Madrimov. His focus is unmistakable. During a recent appearance on Logan Paul's hit podcast, Impulsive, the 36-year-old shared his intense mindset as he prepares for this high-stakes bout on Saturday. During the podcast, the conversation effortlessly shifted to the intriguing possibility of Crawford clashing with Canelo Alvarez in the future, a matchup that's currently capturing global attention. Crawford disclosed that his team's guidance has consistently been forthright and honest, unlike the typical echo chamber of yes men. This prompted Mike Malak to question whether Crawford's upcoming August 3rd super welterweight bout serves as a precursor to a potential showdown with Canelo. Crawford's answer to Malak's inquiry seemed to contradict the obvious fact that he is eager to meet the Mexican great. Crawford quickly responded, with a sense of ease in his voice, that he never views fights as stepping stones, emphasizing that it's all about the present. His attitude on life was the reason behind his composed and confident demeanor. Crawford explained that he might not wake up tomorrow, so he prefers not to think about things far into the future. He emphasized that his sole focus is on Madrimov and stated that he is neither worried about nor thinking about Canelo. Well, here's the really cool part. Crawford has talked about Canelo, even though he may not be considering him right now.
But in a small way, is this a stepping stone to your dream fight?
Never.
Okay.
Never. I don't look at fights as stepping stones because it's about now.
Yep.
I might not wake up tomorrow, so I don't never like to think ahead. My main focus is August 3rd. I'm not worried about Canelo. I'm not thinking about Canelo. I'm just focused on Israil Madrimov.
Given Crawford's impressive accomplishments in the sport, there's no need for him to play games. In his recent interview with Ariel Helwani on the MMA Hour, Crawford was refreshingly candid, offering no excuses for his decisions. The reality is, while Bud Crawford has his sights set on Canelo, the public's attention is firmly fixed on Jaron Boots' Ennis. So, speaking to Helwani, Crawford explained that at this point in his career, he wants fights that make the most sense, and that's not Boots. He added, "Canelo is going to bring way more to my legacy, way more to my bank account." A person would find it difficult to disagree with such a response, considering what the potential Hall of Famer has accomplished thus far. He would definitely make a good living against Ennis, but nothing compares to what a bout with Canelo might accomplish for him and his reputation. Canelo Alvarez, celebrated for his resilience and masterful counterpunching, stands as the dominant force in boxing since Floyd Mayweather's retirement. With an impressive tally of 61 victories from 65 bouts and only 2 defeats, his formidable prowess is unmistakable. Consequently, numerous challengers take their shots at him, though many fail to land a hit. Crawford, however, believes that defeating the 34-year-old would catapult him to boxing stardom, with his trainer eagerly anticipating the showdown. "That's how he is," Brian McIntyre said, of Crawford's strive for greatness to boxing scene. He added, "He has to know. He wants to press to that next level, always." The conversation follows a commitment by Turki Al-Sheikh, chairman of Saudi Arabia's General Entertainment Authority, who promised enticing proposals for both contenders in the upcoming match. This bout is tentatively slated for early 2025, according to current projections. Crawford's remarkable record speaks volumes: 40 bouts, 40 victories, and 31 knockouts. His impressive career has elevated him to champion status in the lightweight division and earned him the title of undisputed ruler in both the light welterweight and welterweight classes. He has also claimed victories against top-tier fighters like Errol Spence Jr., Sean Porter, Kell Brook, and Amir Khan, proving that at 36 years old, he's unafraid to take on the best and hasn't merely padded his record with unchallenging opponents. Crawford steps into the ring once more on Saturday, August 3rd at BMO Stadium in Los Angeles, California. He will go up against Israil Madrimov for the WBA Super Welterweight title, aiming to claim his status as a 4-division champion. Al-Sheikh will make an appearance during the Riyadh season card, even though the match is taking place in North America. This will allow him an up-close view of one half of the Canelo versus Crawford showdown. Meanwhile, it appears that the feud between Terence Crawford and Teofimo Lopez has been escalating, with Crawford recently dismissing Lopez's provocations. This clash ignited earlier this year when Lopez took aim at Crawford's career, and it appears the animosity has only grown since then. In a recent SportsCenter interview, Crawford discussed several fighters with notable enthusiasm, commending talents like Shakur Stevenson, Gervonta Davis, and Isaac Cruz. However, his remarks took a sharp turn when he addressed Teofimo Lopez. Crawford didn't hold back, dismissing the WBO super lightweight champion with a blunt trash, underscoring a deep divide between them. Tensions escalated as Crawford, set to clash with Israil Madrimov, reignited his animosity towards Lopez in a recent SportsCenter interview. When questioned about the chance of a future bout with Lopez, Crawford was unequivocally dismissive, recalling his earlier outburst following Lopez's match against Jermaine Ortiz.
Yo, Wayne, what you think about it?
Man, Tio.
This reaction reveals Crawford's hesitance to consider a fight with Lopez, even though Lopez is eager to step up in weight and face him. Lopez hasn't hesitated to criticize Crawford's previous opponents, implying that they weren't playing at their best when they faced him. During a January interview with Boxing Social, Lopez cast doubt on the legitimacy of Crawford's victories, citing Errol Spence Jr., ASI troubles, and recalling controversies involving opponents such as Jose Benavidez and Kell Brook. Lopez implied in his remarks that Crawford has profited from taking on boxers who have been compromised, which is why he treats Lopez with disdain. Despite the ongoing exchanges, Crawford has consistently shown respect for fellow fighters like Canelo Alvarez and Devin Haney. Nevertheless, his remarks about Lopez reveal a palpable disdain, underscoring his belief that Lopez does not measure up as a genuine contender.
You said that you received a gift tonight, and that's why you were crying after the fight, because you know that you lost.
No, not at all. I cry because I love boxing, man. I bleed for this, man. He can say whatever he wants. What, he beat a washed up Errol Spence. Get out of here, Spence. Get out of here, like Crawford. Get out of here. If you want to fight me, sign the damn contract. Don't say that it's top rank or anything. Matter of fact, I'm not even going to say it. But they know what it is.
Since his TKO defeat to Terence Crawford in July 2023, the first loss of his professional career, Errol Spence Jr. has been absent from the ring. Although Spence and Crawford were long-standing rivals in the welterweight division, the spotlight has now shifted as Bud sets his sights on a blockbuster showdown with Canelo Alvarez. In a surprising twist, The Truth has voiced his unexpected thoughts on the potential bout. Crawford and Alvarez are currently regarded as two of the premier pound-for-pound boxers in the world, making their potential showdown one of the most anticipated fights in boxing history. Although the Mexican fighter has shown scant enthusiasm for a matchup with the Nebraska native, Spence Jr. has publicly endorsed his former rival, predicting that he could be the one to inflict the undisputed super middleweight champion's first defeat at 168 pounds. The ex-welterweight champion's thoughts on a possible matchup between Canelo and Crawford were shared on X by Michael Benson, the boxing editor at TalkSport. Spence said, "If Crawford wants to challenge himself to be great, let him try to be great. I'm with it. I'd be going for Bud. I don't know if he'd win or lose, but if anybody can pull it off, he can pull it off. He's chasing greatness." On July 29, 2023, Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. squared off in a landmark event for boxing. They clashed in a fierce battle, each vying for the honor of becoming the inaugural undisputed welterweight champion of the four-belt era, with both fighters stepping into the ring with unblemished records. Anticipations were high for a clash marked by constant exchanges, yet as soon as the bell rang, it was clear that Crawford, known as Bud, dominated the ring. Despite never having been knocked down in his career, Crawford floored The Truth 3 times before achieving a decisive TKO in the 9th round. Both fighters have transitioned to super welterweight, with the Nebraska native poised to make his divisional debut against WBA champion Israil Madrimov. Meanwhile, Spence Jr. is negotiating a bout with WBC and WBO title holder Sebastian Fundora. Rumors are buzzing that The Truth might be hanging up his gloves for good. In a recent interview leading up to his bout with Madrimov, Bud was asked to share his perspective on the situation. Here's what he had to say. "Like I said, man, I'm only worried about one person. I'm not overlooking this guy. He's a tough opponent. It's gonna be tough." Despite defeating Errol Spence a year ago, Terence Crawford, according to pundit Tim Bradley, has not been able to achieve crossover appeal. Bradley argues that Crawford squandered the momentum from his most significant career victory by taking a 13-month hiatus before returning to the ring, and now he's experiencing the repercussions. Bradley notes that sales of tickets for the 22,000-seat BMO Stadium in Los Angeles, where he will face WBA junior middleweight champion Israil Madrimov this Saturday, August 3rd, are not doing that hot. Crawford has consistently struggled to captivate audiences and never truly stood out as a major attraction throughout his career. The sole exception to this came with his pay-per-view success against former unified welterweight champion Spence last year, a feat many attribute to Errol's star power. It was Errol who pulled in the crowd for that bout. Crawford, hailing from Nebraska, has been stepping into the ring each year since 2020, yet he remains relatively under the radar. His tendency to take extended breaks has hindered his rise to stardom, and now we're eagerly looking to change that. Had he been engaging in 3 to 4 bouts annually, facing off against high-risk adversaries, he would probably have no trouble filling up the BMO Stadium. Fighters who approach their craft as a sideline endeavor for 4 years straight, as Crawford has, seldom achieve star status. Definitely not, replied boxing commentator Tim Bradley to ProBox TV when questioned about whether Terence Crawford has the crossover appeal and promotional power akin to Sugar Ray Leonard's Wheaties box fame in the 1980s. Bradley commented on the ticket sales, saying, "If you're paying attention to ticket sales, they're not doing that hot." Despite his undeniable talent, Crawford never quite reached superstar status before his departure from Top Rank. He was a skilled fighter who secured titles but fell short in the promotional arena. Lacking in charisma, Crawford's interviews often featured terse and unremarkable responses, which did little to enhance his public profile. "I was just in LA and asked a couple of promoters there, and they said, no, the tickets aren't really selling out there. Although Terence is a tremendous fighter, he hasn't reached that superstardom just yet," said Bradley. One of the major hurdles impacting ticket sales is the general public's limited awareness of Israil Madrimov. His name hasn't yet gained significant traction, even among dedicated boxing enthusiasts. Consequently, his presence as an opponent for Crawford in the 22,000-seat arena may not have been the most compelling choice. It would have been ideal if His Excellency Turki Alalshik had promoted the Isaac Cruz versus Jose Rayo Valenzuela bout to the main event status, while placing the Crawford versus Madrimov fight as the co-feature. Bradley said about Crawford, "The last time he fought was a year ago. I don't think he took full advantage of that win over Errol Spence in July 2023. If he had fought a little bit sooner, he maybe could have sold out this place. However, you have guys underneath him that are trying to help sell." Crawford erred significantly by indulging in an extended celebration following his triumph over Errol Spence last year. Instead of basking in the glory, he should have demonstrated greater drive by hitting the gym again in late 2023 and the early months of 2024 to leverage his win over Spence. Bradley said, "Pitbull Cruz brings in a lot of eyes, and he can help sell this arena. You've got Andy Ruiz and guys underneath. Still, the tickets are not selling. It's nothing against Crawford. He's a Midwest guy coming out to the West Coast." Pitbull Cruz's bout with Jose Rayo Valenzuela wouldn't be large enough to sell out BMO Stadium, even if it were the main event. Cruz would have to face off against Gervonta Davis to draw a full house for this venue. Nonetheless, Cruz would still be a stronger choice for the main event compared to the Crawford-Madrimov bout, given that fans in Southern California have a strong preference for his dynamic fighting style. But if you're a crossover superstar, you're able to sell anyway. It doesn't matter where you go in the States. What could have helped was the location. LA, California. A lot of promoters don't like to do business here in California, said Bradley. Make sure to check out some of our other videos on the screen if you enjoyed this one.